Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Money Mondays. My name is Belinda Ray. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at GPCOG, here with my colleague, who's on
Paul
one side.
Johnson, this way.
I don't know.
Morning, everybody. Paul Johnson, I'm the Director of Economic and Community Development here at GPCOG.
And we're here with Money Mondays, where we present funding opportunities and regional resources for our partners. And today, we are going to talk about a few things that are going on here at GPCOG. So let me share the screen. We've talked with you before about the federal funding landscape and what's going on, and there's been some news recently. So we just wanted to kind of give you an update on recent grant losses, the Resilience Corps, which has been in the news a lot, and then just kind of fundraising strategies, what we're doing here. So I'm going to start right off with a trip through the Wayback Machine to Monday, March 10th, the Money Mondays, where we presented the first time on kind of what was going on in the federal landscape. And I gave you these tables that showed the federal grants we had under contract at the time, state grants under contract, and then federal grants we had been awarded but did not yet have a contract for. And so you can see at that time, $12.2 million overall, and it's multiple years. This is not 1 year of grants. These grants, a lot of them stretch over 2 or 3 years. 8.2 of that unliquidated, meaning we hadn't used it yet, and 11.9 million unobligated. That's that last chart. So that's money we did not have a contract for yet. And since then, we have in this chart on the left, we have lost 2 grants. They were terminated. The Environmental Justice Government to Government grant, we got a termination notice on March 27th. And then the AmeriCorps grant, we got a termination notice just like a week ago, like April 27th, I think was about a month apart. So those are both grants that help fund our Resilience Corps program. On the other side, the federal funds that were awarded, no contract, there's one there for a community engagement liaison for some sustainability electric vehicle work that had been, we thought, canceled. It's definitely canceled now. But a bright spot, one that we did not have funding for, or we did not have a contract for, was this zero emission vehicles heavy duty trucks grant. That one has since come through, so we're able to start on that work. So this is the revenue chart that I showed you back in March, and you can see that our total revenue for FY25, our budget was about 6 million, and federal dollars made up about 64.4%. And going into FY26, we have a slight change. Our budget is going down, which is unusual. Budgets usually do go up a little bit because personnel costs typically raise each year and costs of goods and services raise. Ours is going down this year, and the federal percentage is going down just a little bit as well. These changes in the revenue aren't unilateral across. It's not like we lost in every area. Transportation, we are seeing an increase, but that's primarily because of funds that were already allocated and are being spent more heavily in the latter half of calendar year 25. So that's kind of where that comes from. Economic development and sustainability, we're both seeing a decrease in both of those. And we're seeing a little uptick in the member contracts we have with our local members, and then dues are going up 10 cents per capita this year in accordance with inflation and agreements that we have, provided that budget is approved. This budget has not yet been approved, so I will say that it is something that gets approved by the General Assembly, but this is kind of what we're looking at as the proposed budget for FY26. I do want to make the point that overall, GPCOG, the organization, the health is good. We're flexible, we're adaptable, we're working to stabilize funding. It's one of our superpowers, really, that we are so adaptable. Some of our programs, on the other hand, are suffering from these cuts. So as I mentioned, economic development, sustainability, particularly clean energy projects, and then the Resilience Corps. And that's the one that you've seen in the news lately. This headline was, I think, in Friday's paper. 120 AmeriCorps positions in the state have been cut, and it's nationwide. It's not just Maine. And of course, that affects these 12 people. One of them cut out of the picture, sorry. These 12 people, many of whom moved here to Maine to take these positions and now are kind of facing some uncertainty with what's going to happen with the remainder of their service term. So just a review, we currently have 12 fellows. They are serving in 3 counties, York, Saginaw, and Cumberland, and they're supporting projects in 20 towns. And then here's another little Wayback Machine, flashing back to a September Money Mondays. This is the previous year's cohort. And you'll see that at that time we were saying this program is sponsored in part by AmeriCorps, in part by the EPA, and we have support from Volunteer Maine, which is the state commission for AmeriCorps. So we've lost those. So that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. Those are the major funding for the program. We do get some funding from host sites, the fees that they pay, but the vast majority of the funding has come from these 2 grants. So that's kind of something we are looking at. And I'm going to pass it to Paul now.
So what's next? Well, the easy answer is we don't know. But just a couple things to highlight from the article that Belinda referenced earlier. I think it was on Friday. It's informative. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's a recap of what Belinda just went through. But I just put up 2 quotes, direct quotes from that news article. And first is from Senator Collins, strongly stating that she is opposed to making cuts to AmeriCorps. And the second is from Congressman Golden, who is a strong supporter of the AmeriCorps. So the good news is our federal delegation appears to have this on their radar, and it does seem to have moved the needle, so to speak, on, hey, is this worth fighting for? Clearly, that's out of our hands here on Money Mondays. But, an immediate next step is to see, does anything shake out from the immediate knee-jerk reaction? As many of us know, there's some terminations and then there's a reaction, and then does that termination get reversed? Don't know. If I was a betting man, I don't know if I'd bet on it. But that's the current immediate reaction that was publicly released by some of the federal delegation. But it's also worth noting, without going into too much detail, because I don't think Belinda and I and leadership quite know what this would look like yet. But we do have an organization under GPCOG, which is the Center for Regional Prosperity. And that is a 501B. Is that this 501B? 50, right? No, 501C.
Yeah, 501c3. Sorry.
501c3. Yes, correct. Sorry. Which means that it's essentially a nonprofit that can accept donations, and those donations can be tax deductible for the people that are actually making those donations. So although GPCOG is not a charitable donation, so to speak, we do have a mechanism. We have an organization that's under umbrella. So if we were to pivot and try to fill in some of these funding gaps with a capital campaign or a charity drive or something similar, we actually have some mechanisms where we could do fundraising that would tap into all of the typical nonprofits. We would do that under Center of Regional Prosperity versus GPCOG. But the good news is we could operationally do all the same stuff with that money. It's just we did it for other projects. To Belinda's credit, I believe Belinda was the architect behind forming this. And the good news is it turns out it might have some future applications, and it's certainly one of the things that internally we've been discussing for the last several months.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, Center for Regional Prosperity was incorporated in 2018. And I wasn't the architect. I think I was on the board at GPCOG at that time. I think Chris Hall might have been the architect of this. And it's done some great things. It helped secure a lot of broadband funding. The Maine Broadband Coalition kind of sprung from that. And also funding that helped to create our Community Transportation Leaders program. So there's been a lot of good stuff going through the Center for Regional Prosperity. And it continues to function, has its own board, and we have discussed with them the possibility of raising funds to try to fill some of these gaps. So that is something we will look at going forward. I see a couple of comments. Oh yeah, thank you. Andrea, Barry, I think everyone can see these comments, but yeah, Andrea, it sounds like her program as well has been terminated. So there's a lot of that going around. We are looking at our options and trying to figure it out. And as Paul said, we don't know if the termination will be permanent, if it might be rescinded. So we're watching it all, and again, being flexible and adaptable as we are here at GPCOG. So thanks everybody for listening to that. If you have any questions, if you have an AmeriCorps fellow right now, Julia, our program manager, and Sarah, our sustainability director, have been meeting with host sites to talk about it, to talk about the future and how things are going. Right now, our AmeriCorps members continue to serve, just not under the AmeriCorps name right now because they're not allowed to under that program. That program is no longer paying for them. So we are continuing that while we figure out our next steps. But thank you. And questions, concerns, happy to hear any of it. And I think that's all we have today, Paul.
I think it is too. We will see everybody next Monday. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.